Hello there, me again. I hope you're all enjoying the sun, and thank you to all those who sent me some jokes. So here goes, I'm going to tell you a few now. And remember, if you think you can do better, then send them in. So here we go. What's a pirate's favourite letter? R. Get it? R. Okay. This is one for the Star Wars fans. What do you call a droid that takes the long way around? An R2 detour. An English joke. What dinosaur had the best vocabulary? A thesaurus. Oh, and so science don't feel left out, a science joke. Why can't you trust what atoms say? Because they make up everything. Get it? Make up everything. Atoms? We're made of atoms? Oh, okay. Right. Today, I want to talk about this. So, it's about the Lion Albert, and it is written by Marriott Edgar. It was made famous and performed a lot in music hall by Stanley Holloway, and it was first performed in London at the Savoy Theatre in 1931. So it's quite old, but it's still very, very popular. This piece is a comic monologue and was designed to be spoken to a rhythm. If you notice, when you listen to it, the end of each second line rhymes, and each stanza or verse has one rhyme in it. It's a little bit like the Highwayman that I read last time. So, these monologues usually were accompanied with music and a piano there, which all added to the fun of it. And I know that in lessons we've talked about soliloquies and monologues before, but I thought just to clear some things up. So, what is a monologue, I ask, and what is a soliloquy? Monologues are usually delivered by a person, one person. It's a speech that is given to an audience within a play. So in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, the character Brutus delivers a speech to the crowd or to the mob within the play. When he says his speech, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." So that is a monologue. He's kind of just talking to the crowd within the play. A soliloquy, though, is a little bit different. It means speaking alone. And in a play, a soliloquy is delivered by a character to himself. He's not talking to anybody, he's just talking to himself. The writer uses this device so that he can show what a character's feeling, what his thoughts are, and this helps the audience then to understand the character better and how he behaves in the play, especially like Macbeth, when Macbeth was struggling with having to kill Duncan and seeing the dagger, and he was talking to himself to help the audience know how he's feeling. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Oberon, the king of the fairies, has fallen out with his queen, Titania, and plots his revenge. We hear his thoughts in his soliloquy, "I know a bank where the wild thyme blows." The audience hears his thoughts about how he's going to get revenge on Titania and where he's going to do it. But the monologues by Marriott Edgar, and there were quite a few of them, were a little bit different. They were comedic monologues and were funny stories, and they were meant to be told to an audience in a music hall theatre. Now, music hall was a popular form of entertainment in Victorian and Edwardian times, and was a little bit like Britain's Got Talent at that point. There were singers, there were dancers and acrobats, jugglers and comedians, plus lots of other acts as well. And the success of the acts it wasn't the judges who said whether they thought they were good or not. It was the audience themselves. And if they didn't like you, then you might get pelted with rotten tomatoes or rotten vegetables, or you might get booed off the stage. And the person who owned the musical would have this big hook, and he would kind of reach across the stage. I think we've all seen it, and he would pull the person off, and they wouldn't get paid. So it was in their interest to kind of be as entertaining as they could. So popular artists like Stanley Holloway, and he's kind of a little bit of a more modern times. You might actually have seen Stanley Holloway was in My Fair Lady a few years ago. So Stanley Holloway and Marriott Edgar would mix comedy and music, especially with these funny stories. So The Lion and Albert is the first of these very, very funny stories about this family, the Ramsbottoms. And traditionally, they're read in dialect. That means how the language is spoken in different parts of the country, in different areas, and they might have different words to mean different things. So these monologues were written with the Lancastrian dialect in mind, but they can be read in many, many different ways. Some of the words too might be a little bit old-fashioned and not used anymore because of the time that it was written, in 1931. In this monologue, the lion was called Wallace, and that's quite special because at the time that this was written, the first lion to be born in captivity in Britain was called Wallace, and so is much loved. Right. Let's have a look at this. So I'm going to read the poem now. So I need to listen to the rhymes, and imagine what it would be like to actually hear it with music behind it as well. So The Lion and Albert. There's a famous seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun, and Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went there with Albert, their son. He a grand little lad was old Albert, all dressed in his best, quite a swell, with a stick with an horse's head handle, the finest that Woolworths could sell. They didn't think much to ocean, the waves was all fiddling and small. There was no wrecks and nobody drowned. In fact, there was nothing to laugh at all. So seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into zoo, where they'd camels and lions and tigers, and old ale and sandwiches too. There were one great big lion called Wallace. His nose were all covered with scars. He lay in a somnolent posture, with the side of his face at the bars. Now Albert had heard about lions, how they was ferocious and wild. To see Wallace lying so peaceful like, well, it didn't seem right to the child. So straight away the brave little fella, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick with the horse's head handle and pushed it in Wallace's ear. You could see that the lion didn't like it, for giving a kind of a roll, he pulled Albert inside the cage with him and swallowed the little lad whole. Then Pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said, "Mother, yon lion's at Albert." And Mother said, "Well, I am vexed." Then Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom, quite rightly when all's said and done, complained to the animal keeper that the lion had eaten their son. The keeper was quite nice about it. He said, "Oh, what a nasty mishap. Are you sure that it's your boy he's eaten?" Pa said, "I'm sure. Look, here's his cap." The manager had to be sent for. He came and he said, "What's to do?" Pa said, "Yon lion's at Albert, and him in his Sunday best too." Then Mother said, "Right's right, young fella. I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat Albert, and right after we've paid to come in." The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away, saying, "How much to settle the matter?" And Pa said, "What do you usually pay?" But Mother had turned a bit awkward when she thought where her Albert had gone. She said, "No, someone's got to be summoned." So that was decided upon. Then off they went to police station in front of magistrate chap. They told him what happened to Albert and proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame, and he said that he hoped that Mr. and Mrs. Rambotham would have further sons to their claim. At that, Mother got proper blazing. "And thank you kindly, sir," said she. "What a waste all our lives raising children! To feed lions? Not me." And that's the end of the monologue. And I'm quite lucky because I've got this copy and it's from the 1970s. If you can actually see on it, it only costs 40 pence. So I don't know how much it costs now. So that was the point about Albert and his mum and dad having their day out in Blackpool. They weren't impressed with it. I've got to say I was when I used to go when I was your age. They created their own entertainment and there's lots of hilarious consequences there. So, of course, as I've just said, the story continues with the return of Albert and a number of others about this comic family. Now, what I would like you to do is think of a favourite holiday or a trip where something funny happened. You know, it could be anything that you want, but something funny, something that amused you. And I'd like you to write about it and send it to the normal address at the bottom there. I'm not asking you to write War and Peace. I'm not asking you to rewrite the whole Harry Potter stories. Just a few sentences. Okay? I'll see you again sometime. Thank you very much. Bye.